So tonight we're continuing our series on Rebbe Nachman of Breslov's Outpouring of the Soul, his teachings on Hitbodedut, or solitary meditation. Chapter 18 is very short, happiness and contrition. When a person is happy all day long, it is easy to set aside some time each day when he can express his thoughts before God with a contrite heart. But when one is depressed, it is very difficult to meditate and speak to God. Rebbe Nachman says something very, very interesting here. You have to listen carefully to hear it. When a person is happy all day, it is easy to pray, basically. He says it's easy to express his thoughts before God with a contrite heart. Now, contrite heart is a repentant heart. It is a heart that is willing to look at its own darkness. This is the kind of person who takes a nightly inventory of events of the day and goes back over them point by point to see how they measure up. In other words, it's a morally alive human being. And Rebbe Nachman says over and over again in his teachings that these people are generally very happy. They're very happy, the people who do this, because they're not accumulating layer upon archaeological layer of resentments and bad feelings or bad behavior, but they are addressing them and clearing them each day and meeting each day with a fresh resolve to practice compassion and happiness and hope. He says, but when one is depressed, it is very difficult to meditate and speak to God. Now you'd think that would be the easy time when you're depressed, right? That's a time when you would be actually possibly closer to God. So you would think that a person who's in that state might be more vulnerable, might be closer to the edge or about to hit the wall, however you want to describe it, and be in a better position to talk to God. Rebbe Nachman says no. Very interesting. He says no. There is a prayer I've been reading about all day. Elizabeth Sifton, I think is her name. She was Reinhold Niebuhr's daughter. Reinhold Niebuhr is a very, very famous Protestant theologian of the 20th century. And he is well known today for a lot of reasons, but not the least of which is because he is the author of the Serenity prayer, which one finds everywhere. It goes like this: God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. But it's interesting what it says first. First it says, God, grant me the serenity. Serenity comes first. Now, you might think that serenity would be the fruits of these others. Like you might say, God, grant me the courage. God, grant me the wisdom. And then the fruit of these would be a serene mind, right? But it actually starts with serenity. Serenity is key. Serenity is the key to the prayer. It is really the opening of the prayer. It opens the world of that prayer. It is the point at which that prayer opens up and we can step inside of it. It's the front door of that prayer. And in fact, it is the front door of prayer, a certain level of serenity. Because only when we are relaxed and calm enough, not so relaxed, not like relaxed into complete dejection. Okay, we have to be upright, we have to be alive, we have to be engaged. We can't be completely collapsed. Okay, we have to be alive and lively within this, but calm and serene and open and focused, kind of a quietly alert joy. Serenity is a certain kind of joy, though. It's not a joy that exaggerates itself. It's not an exaggerated joy. It's not a forced joy. Serenity is simply accepting oneself, other people, and the world exactly as they are. That's what serenity is. Really what Rebbe Nachman is saying is that it's very hard to speak to God if you don't have some degree of serenity. So the question becomes, well, how do we get that? Let's take an average situation, just think very practically about this. We get a feeling of maybe pessimism or hopelessness that steals in, and we begin to feel that way. Daily life is a path, it's a journey. We're putting one foot in front of the other, and with each footstep we have a thought. And if we can take a step or two back to the thought we had before that feeling began to manifest itself, we can almost always locate it. And if we can get back to that thought, then we can target some person, place, thing, situation, whatever, that we find unacceptable. We find unacceptable. We cannot accept it. And we must do this to it. We must say no to it. But the moment we say no to some aspect of life or ourselves or other people or the world and reject it, an interesting thing happens. We push that thing away, and in pushing it away, we leave an opening for it to get in and under our skin. It's strange how that happens. The act of pushing it away actually brings it in and entrenches it and really situates it inside of our hearts, so that we have no serenity, and serenity is lost. If we can step back one or two steps in our thinking and in our emotions and our feelings and find that thought, where it has gotten in and where we have taken our flat palm and placed it out and said, no, you shall not enter, you shall not be accepted, you are unacceptable. If at that moment we make this into this, then 9 times out of 10, whatever the feeling associated with that thing, the situation may not have changed at all, but the feeling associated with that thought shifts and changes, often right before our eyes. So you're driving along and you see something which calls something to mind, which is a worry or an anxiety. You say, "Oh gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not up to that. Okay, I can't deal with that." Or some sort of fear gets evoked. Okay, basically it's this. And then you catch yourself and say, I've lost my serenity. If you value your serenity above all things, then you will know the moment you lose it. And if you then say, I've lost my serenity, what happened to it? And you go, oh, there it is. And you go, from this to just this. Just to this. And you accept that thing, then the feeling will change before your eyes. And then perhaps you say, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Following that progression, what will happen is that in that moment you go, well, I can't change that, but I can change this. Because the thoughts naturally follow. The moment you accept something is something you cannot change, even if it's only a thought or a feeling or some reality out there that you can't do anything about at the moment, then almost inevitably in the next moment there's something that you can do. Oftentimes that something is just to be serene now and to accept and to be at peace. Because peace makes everything better, every single thing. Contrite heart is simply a heart that's willing to accept mistakes, imperfections, inadequacies, lacks, just to accept them, to go from this to this. That's all a contrite heart is. And a contrite heart is an open heart. My daughter once said to me when she was about 6 years old, she took a little chopstick wrapper from a Japanese restaurant. We're having sushi together. And she tore a little hole in the top part of the wrapper. And then she drew a heart over it, and then she lifted it up and drew a larger heart inside of it, and then she handed it to me. I've still got it. There's a bookmark in one of my Bibles. And she said, look, Daddy, inside of a broken heart is a bigger heart. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah, she's like 6 years old. 6-year-old kids will say things like this. So, and that's quite true. That's what Rebbe Nachman means. He says, but if you don't want your heart to break, then it's hard to have a large heart. And if it's hard to have a large heart, it's hard to pray. And it's hard to be happy. And it's very easy to be depressed and to stay depressed. So that's Rebbe Nachman's teaching for tonight.